The grandfather clock in the corner ticks like a heartbeat gone wrong, too slow, too deliberate. I sit at our kitchen table, my fingers tracing the familiar scratch marks from 17 years of family dinners. The yellow cake before me lists slightly to one side, a homemade creation my foster mother Jean still insists on making even though I'm 20 today. Jean's hands tremble as she arranges 20 blue candles in a crooked circle. Her wedding ring catches the afternoon light streaming through our kitchen window. Dad Gregory stands beside her in his charcoal suit, the one reserved for funerals and his quarterly court appearances as a character witness for Dr. Hale's foundation. "Happy birthday, Maya," Gregory says, his smile tight at the corners. The words hang in the stagnant Midwest air between us. Neither of them has looked me directly in the eyes all day. "Thank you," I answer, watching Jean fuss with the lighter, her third attempt to create a steady flame. The silence that follows feels rehearsed, as if they've been practicing this moment for weeks. Gregory clears his throat, straightening his Tia nervous habit I've cataloged since childhood. "Maya, there's something we need to tell you now that you're 20. Jean stops lighting candles, 5 still unlit. Her eyes dart to Gregory, a silent question passing between them. "We've waited until we thought you were ready," he continues. Jean twists her wedding ring, the gold band spinning like a washer around her finger. The action speaks louder than any words she might offer. "I'll get it," she murmurs, disappearing into the hallway. The floorboards creak beneath her quick steps. I wait, maintaining the neutral expression I've perfected through years of careful observation. When Jean returns, she's dragging a worn suitcase, the ancient Samsonite, with the broken wheel that hasn't seen use since before I can remember. "You were adopted, Maya," Gregory states, voice flat like he's reading from an invisible script. "You came to us when you were 3. Jean slides an envelope across the worn oak table, pushing it past the tilting cake until it stops inches from my hands. I don't reach for it immediately. "There's $400 in there," she says softly, "and the address of a hostel in the city. They have monthly rates." Gregory adjusts his tie again. "We fulfilled our obligation to the state. You're an adult now, and we think it's best if you start your own life," Jean finishes, her voice cracking on the final word. I look at the envelope, then at the faces I've studied for 17 years, searching for reflections of myself. I've never found any. I wait an extra beat before speaking, watching discomfort grow in their posture. "Is there anything else you need to tell me about Camille Mercer?" The color drains from Gregory's face so quickly it's as if someone pulled a plug. Jean's coffee cup slips from her grasp, shattering against the hardwood floor, dark liquid splashing across her sensible beige shoes. "How did you—" Gregory starts, then stops, his lawyer's instinct for damage control kicking in. 2 months ago, I was searching for Christmas decorations in our garage when I found a metal storage box with a broken lock. Inside, beneath tax records and property deeds, lay a birth certificate with a name I'd never seen before. Maya Claire Mercer. Mother, Dr. Camille Elizabeth Mercer. Father, unknown. For weeks afterward, I spent my afternoons in the public library, searching newspaper archives and public records. The microfiche machine became my closest confidant as I found the newspaper clipping about Dr. Camille Mercer's dangerous delusions regarding experiments at Stonemeyer Institute, where Gregory once worked as chief financial officer. "I'm going to pack," I tell them, standing from the table. The cake sits forgotten, its candles a mix of lit and unlit, wax beginning to drip onto the yellow frosting. In my bedroom, I methodically fold clothes into a backpack I purchased weeks ago. Through the thin walls, I hear their whispered argument in the hallway, Jean's voice rising in distress, Gregory's harsher tones cutting her off. Dinner passes in uncomfortable silence. Jean keeps glancing at me, opening her mouth as if to speak, then looking away. Gregory studies his plate like it contains answers to questions he doesn't want asked. I pause at my bedroom door one last time, committing to memory the faded floral wallpaper, the bookshelf filled with carefully selected classics, the window that never quite closed in winter. When I walk out the front door, backpack over one shoulder and the address of Pinewood Hostel in my pocket, Gregory offers to drive me. No, I say simply, and begin walking down the Maple Line Street without looking back. The suitcase they packed stays behind, along with their version of my story. But I'm taking the truth with me. The Pinewood hostel smells like discount pine cleaner and decades of cigarette smoke. My room 12 by 14 feet with water stains mapping the ceiling costs $30 a night. At this rate, the money my foster parents gave me will last less than 2 weeks. I pin another newspaper clipping to the wall. The collection grows daily. Yellowed headlines and grainy photographs spread across the faded floral wallpaper like an infection. At the center hangs a photograph of Dr. Camille Mercer, from a medical journal, me mother's face, serious and determined. My face, with 17 years of different choices. The night manager knocks twice before entering, even though the door has no lock. Another late night, huh? Vince asks, leaning against the doorframe. His eyes drift over my wall of evidence without curiosity. In places like Pinewood, people learn not to ask questions. Just checking you're alive. Been in here 3 days straight. I'm fine. I fold the article I was reading. Thanks for the extra blanket. He nods, lingering another moment before leaving. The door doesn't close properly. Nothing works right at Pinewood, which makes it perfect. No one expects anything from a place already falling apart. I return to my timeline, tracing red yarn between pushpins. Gregory Collins, Chief Financial Officer for the Hale Foundation, 1998, 2005. Dr. Martin Hale, founder of Stonemaier Institute, current board chairman of 6 hospitals across the Midwest. Dr. Lawrence Whitman, the psychiatrist who signed my mother's commitment papers 3 days after she filed a formal complaint about experimental treatments at Stonemaier. The library's microfiche machine has become my closest companion. Mrs. Delaney, the head librarian with arthritic hands and sharp eyes, no longer asks what I'm researching. Yesterday, she placed a sealed envelope beside my station without comment. Inside, her handwritten list of archived medical board complaints from 2000-2005. 5 names highlighted, all women, all committed within weeks of filing complaints against Stonemaier Institute or Dr. Hale. My mother wasn't the first, just the one who got closest to exposing them. The desk in my hostel room disappears beneath stacks of photocopies and handwritten notes. I've created my own filing system, ILO cards for financial records, blue for medical documents, green for personal connections. The pattern emerges in stark relief. Gregory Collins personally oversaw the financial arrangements for at least 3 research employees who were institutionalized after raising concerns. My fingers brush the official adoption papers stamped, signed, and processed with remarkable speed. The court records show minimal investigation into my background. No attempt to locate relatives. No waiting period. Gregory and Jean Collins became my parents with suspicious efficiency. The same month, Gregory received a bonus equal to a year's salary. I wasn't saved. I was silenced. My stomach growls, but I ignore it. I've been existing on vending machine snacks and library drinking fountain water. The money needs to last, and hunger is just another distraction. At the courthouse, Millie Henderson slips me an access card while pretending to explain the public record system. The retired clerk's voice drops to a whisper. 3rd floor, records room B. That card won't register in the system. You have 30 minutes before security does rounds. I find it in the supposedly sealed files, quarterly payments from a shell corporation to the Collins household coded as dependent care support. The payments continued until last month. My 20th birthday marked the end of their obligation. I traced the paper trail through medical files, watching my mother's credentials vanish one by one. Her medical license suspended pending review. Her published research withdrawn with vague allegations of misconduct. Her academic positions terminated. A systematic erasure executed with terrifying thoroughness. The librarian finds me late Thursday afternoon, her lips pressed into a thin line. She slides a worn folder across the table without meeting my eyes. "This shouldn't exist anymore," she murmurs. "They requested all copies be destroyed during the investigation. I kept one. Been waiting for someone to ask the right questions." Inside, the original whistleblower statement from Dr. Camille Mercer, detailing experimental treatments on female patients diagnosed with oppositional personality disorders or hysterical tendencies, patients who questioned authority, women who refused to comply, treatments designed to create docility and acceptance of established hierarchies. In my room at Pinewood, I unfold one of Gregory's donation envelopes from the Hale Foundation. The return address sits like an accusation in blue ink. The same logo appears on my mother's commitment papers. The same signature Gregory Collins authorizing financial arrangements for Dr. Camille Mercer's indefinite therapeutic residency. Mrs. Henderson finds me in the library basement 3 days later, her arthritis-gnarled hands twisting nervously. "They're not in the system," she whispers, glancing toward the stairs. "When Stonemeyer closed, some patients were transferred. Special cases, not in any public database." She slides a hand-drawn map across the table. A winding road through dense woodland, an unmarked turnoff, a facility named Rock Hollow Behavioral Center. "Security badge only," she adds. "Minimal staff, maximum containment." That night, I drive my second-hand Honda along the unmarked access road. Tree branches scrape against the windows like warning fingers. After 3 miles of densely wooded isolation, the facility appears a sprawling stone structure with narrow windows and a chain-link perimeter topped with razor wire. A single guard booth monitors the entrance. A discreet sign identifies it as Rock Hollow Behavioral Center. Private property. No trespassing. Is she in there? Has she been there all these years? Just 2 hours from the house where I grew up? I park on the shoulder a quarter mile away, using binoculars to study the building. Cameras positioned at every corner. Staff parking for only 20 cars. A loading dock where a pharmacy delivery truck unloads unmarked containers. A facility designed not for treatment, but for containment. My mother is behind those walls. I'm certain of it. The question isn't whether I'll get her out. The question is how far I'll go to dismantle the system that put her there and the people who've built their lives on her silence. Starting with the man I called father for 17 years. The bathroom mirror of my hostel room reflects a stranger. Chestnut hair dye stains the cheap porcelain sink. I practice my cover story under my breath, while massaging color into my scalp with gloved hands. Angela Weber, social work student, thesis on long-term care environments. The words feel stiff on my tongue despite 2 weeks of rehearsal. My forged student ID and visitor application rest on the countertop beside a spiral notebook with unnecessarily detailed research questions. People rarely question those who appear official and boring. The drive to Rock Hollow takes 40 minutes on winding back roads. The facility emerges from dense woodland like something from a Victorian nightmare, a sprawling brick structure with narrow windows and a wrought iron gate that seems designed more to keep people in than out. My pulse hammers against my ribs as I approach the visitor entrance, but my face reveals nothing. The receptionist barely glances at my credentials, her hollow eyes scanning my forged documents with mechanical indifference. "Purpose of visit?" she asks, voice flat as week old soda. "Research interview with patient Camille Mercer for my thesis on institutional care environments." I hand her the official, looking approval letter I created, complete with forged signatures. She stamps a visitor pass and buzzes me through without a second look. The antiseptic smell hits me, first bleach and industrial cleaner masking something sour underneath. Shuffling feet echo down the corridor in steady rhythm as patients move between scheduled activities, flanked by attendants with clipboard charts and bored expressions. The visiting area consists of scattered tables bolted to the floor, each separated enough to prevent easy conversation between groups. A guard stands by the only exit, keys jangling at his belt. And then I see her. My mother sits by the window, frail hands folded in her lap, wispy hair pulled back in a loose knot. Sunlight filters through wire-reinforced glass, illuminating dust particles that dance around her like miniature constellations. Her vacant gaze follows nothing in particular. My research hadn't prepared me for how small she would look. I approached slowly, setting my notebook on the table with deliberate calm. Dr. Mercer? I'm Angela Weber. Thank you for agreeing to speak with me. Her eyes don't focus immediately. The medication, I realize. They keep her drifting between reality and somewhere else. I sit across from her, acutely aware of the guard checking his watch. Timing matters. According to the schedule I memorized, medication rounds happen at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. It's 11:30, the window when some patients experience brief clarity. I'm researching long-term care environments, I continue, loud enough for anyone listening. Then, leaning forward slightly, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Maya. My name is Maya. Her eyes sharpen suddenly, pupils contracting, as if someone adjusted her focus. Her fingers tremble as they reach toward my face, stopping inches short of contact. They said you would forget me, she whispers, voice rough from disuse. That you'd be safer that way. The simple recognition splinters something in my chest. 16 years of separation dissolved by 5 quiet words. I remember enough, I answer, opening my notebook to create a shield from watching eyes. Camille's gaze darts to the guard, then back to me. We have 20 minutes before Lawrence makes his rounds. He thinks I'm responding well to the new dosage. I nod, keeping my expression neutral despite the storm building behind my ribs. Tell me what happened. Behavioral conditioning experiments at Stonemeyer. She murmurs, face arranged in the pleasant mask of the institutionalized. Hale called them breakthrough treatments for treatment-resistant patients. She describes mental tortures disguised as therapy, sleep deprivation, isolation, experimental drugs without consent. The careful selection of difficult woman single mothers, former addicts, abuse survivors whose complaints would be easily dismissed. I was department head of psychiatry. I found the files. Patient suicides classified as treatment failures. Her words come faster now, decades of silenced truth rushing out. I confronted Martin. Filed reports. 3 days later, she was committed, declared delusional by colleagues she had trusted. Your father arranged everything, she says, and for a moment confusion clouds my expression before I realize she means Gregory Collins. He handled the financial transfers, the paperwork for your custody arrangement, called it protective intervention. My pen hovers above my notebook, trembling slightly. The man I called father for 17 years personally orchestrated my mother's imprisonment and my appropriation. I notice Camille's right hand sliding beneath the thin cushion of her chair. She extracts a small notebook bound in faded blue fabric, passing it beneath the table. I've documented everything, she whispers. 17 years of treatments, staff rotations, medication protocols. They assume the drugs make me compliant. They never searched hard enough. The journal disappears into my bag as I stare at this woman who never stopped fighting despite chemical restraints and isolation, who kept her mind intact through systematic attempts to destroy it. There's a nurse, Camille continues. Margot Bell. She left last year but still visits her former patients. Officially, she brings cookies and magazines. Unofficially, she knows what they're doing here. I memorize the name, already planning my approach. How do I find her? Service entrance, Thursdays at 4 o'clock. Tell her I sent you. Camille's eyes flick toward the hallway where a medication card appears. Our time's almost up. I rise, gathering my notebook with steady hands despite the earthquake reshaping my understanding of everything. I'll come back. I know, she says, her expression softening for the first time. You have my eyes. 3 days later, I stand by the service entrance of Rock Hollow, collar turned up against autumn wind that carries the scent of approaching rain. At precisely 4 o'clock, a woman in her 50s approaches, carrying a basket covered with checkered cloth. Margot Bell? I ask quietly. She freezes, keys halfway to the door, wariness evident in her rigid posture. Camille Mercer sent me. The wariness transforms to fear, then resignation. "I've waited years for someone to ask the right questions," she finally says. "But not here. Meet me at Lakeside Diner in an hour." At the diner, over burnt coffee, Margot places a flash drive beside my saucer. Medication records, unauthorized protocols, security schedules. Her voice barely carries over the clattering dishes. "Your mother wasn't the only one, but she was the one they feared most." I slide it into my pocket, fear and fury battling beneath my controlled expression. "There's more," she says, pushing a manila folder across the table. "These were harder to access." Inside are pediatric medical records, my medical records years of preventative treatments administered during routine checkups. Experimental compounds disguised as vitamins and vaccines, authorized with Gregory Collins's signature on every form. Understanding crystallizes like ice in my veins. My unexplained childhood illnesses. The monthly doctor visits. The pills every morning with breakfast that Jean insisted were just to keep you healthy, sweetheart. "There are others," Margot says quietly. "Children of whistleblowers, all placed in protective custody with carefully selected guardians, all receiving specialized medical care." I stare at pages documenting the chemical alteration of my developing brain, the careful monitoring for signs of maternal instability patterns. Years of being medicated against an inheritance of courage they labeled madness. The rage that rises is cold, and precises a surgeon's scalpel rather than a forest fire. "This ends now," I tell Margot, voice steady despite the seismic shift occurring within me. "All of it." As I walk back to my car, I make a silent vow to the mother who never stopped fighting, and to the child I was who never knew why her mind felt slightly foggy, why her dreams were always just beyond reach. They hadn't just stolen my mother. They had methodically attempted to erase her from me, cell by cell, synapse by synapse. They had failed. The bathroom mirror at Pinewood Hostel has a crack running from corner to corner. I trace it with my finger, watching my reflection split into the person I was raised to be and the person I'm becoming. 3 weeks living in this place, and I've claimed the corner room as my war room. Behind me, the back wall blooms with a collage of evidence and newspaper clippings, photocopied documents, handwritten notes spiderwebbing between them with red string. My makeshift investigation board has consumed nearly every bit of my remaining cash, but money becomes meaningless when measured against 16 years of stolen time. I step back, scanning the timeline I've constructed. Whistleblowers at Stonemaier silenced with disturbing regularity. Psychiatric commitments following allegations. Children placed in protective custody with financially compensated guardians. Each thread connects back to the Hale Foundation, and to Gregory Collins, the man who called himself my father while cashing checks for keeping me quiet. Camille's coded journal sits open on the bed beside my laptop. I've spent every night for a week transcribing her deliberate scrawl, deciphering the substitution cipher she developed to document everything. Medication dosages increased before board inspections. Patient transfers in the middle of the night. Staff members who questioned protocols suddenly reassigned or terminated. The hostel radiator clanks and hisses, pushing tepid air into the room. I check my watch, almost time. Outside the diner window, traffic crawls through the afternoon rain. I chose this place specifically crowded enough for anonymity, noisy enough to mask conversation, 3 exits in case of trouble. The woman across from me stirs her coffee for the 3rd time without drinking it. "I tried to tell this story 10 years ago," Tessa Monroe says finally. Her eyes, sharp despite the fatigue lining her face, scan the documents I've placed between us. A former investigative journalist blacklisted after pursuing corruption allegations against politically connected figures, Tessa was my 7th attempt at finding the right ally. The previous 6 believed me, but lacked either the courage or the platform to help. "What happened?" I ask, though I already know from my research. Sudden tax audit. Mysterious computer failures that wiped my research. Sources who denied ever speaking to me. She taps a finger against the photo of Dr. Hale, They didn't just discredit me, they erased me professionally. Yet here you are. Something flickers across her face, not quite a smile. Some stories never let you go, even after they destroy you. I push Camille's photocopied journal pages toward her. This time we have evidence they can't erase. She studies the pages, her professional mask slipping for just a moment. Your mother was brilliant. Even heavily medicated, she built a case. We spend the next hour developing our distribution plan. Multiple outlets, never just one. Independent podcasts focusing on medical ethics and institutional abuses. Former prosecutors now working in patient advocacy. Journalists operating outside traditional media structures. Individual packages, Tessa explains, sketching a diagram on her napkin. Each one gets unique documentation with separate access codes. No single target has everything. A Deadman switch protocol, I add, understanding immediately. She nods, something like respect crossing her features. We're not just telling the truth. We're making it too loud to bury. I return to the hostel after dark to find Gregory standing in the shabby lobby, his charcoal suit incongruous against the worn furniture. The night manager looks almost apologetic as I approach. Maya, Gregory says, his lawyer voice perfectly modulated despite the tension visible in his jaw. We need to talk. I lead him to the common room, deliberately choosing the space with the security camera in the corner. He notices my strategic positioning, his eyes narrowing slightly. Your mother had certain unstable genetics, he begins, straightening his tie. We've protected you from that heritage, these delusions you're pursuing. How did you find me? I interrupt. His momentary silence tells me everything. They're watching, tracking. The police contacted me today, I tell him calmly. They're concerned about my behavior. Interesting timing. His expression doesn't change, but his knuckles whiten as he grips his leather portfolio. That evening, a text arrives from Margot. Security doubled at Rock Hollow. Night transfer scheduled. They're moving patients, hiding evidence. Someone accessed my library account yesterday, according to the automated email notification. My carefully constructed timeline suddenly seems too slow, too methodical. 3 days later it begins. The Medical Ethics Podcast releases their interview with an anonymous insider alongside Camille's audio recordings describing the experimental protocols. By noon, screenshots circulate across social media. Local reporters start making inquiries. Anonymous tips from former employees begin trickling in, validating our claims. The hostel manager stops me at the stairs that evening, voice low. 2 men asking questions about you today. Showed badges but wouldn't leave cards. I text Tessa immediately. We need to accelerate our timeline. By morning, I've relocated to an apartment belonging to Tessa's friend. My few possessions in my backpack. The first major news outlet has picked up the story. The Hale Foundation issues a statement denying all allegations, calling it a coordinated smear campaign. Their denial rings hollow against the gathering wave of evidence we've unleashed. Too many voices speaking at once. Too many documents pointing to the same conclusion. The truth isn't just emerging. It's roaring. I wake to the sound of my burner phone vibrating against the nightstand. The digital clock reads 4:17 a.m. Tessa's name flashes on the screen. It's happening, she says without preamble. Turn on any news channel. I fumble for the remote, my fingers clumsy with sleep and adrenaline. The ancient television in my temporary apartment flickers to life, bathing the room in blue light. The scrolling headline at the bottom of the screen reads, Breaking. Multiple outlets report allegations of patient abuse at Rockalo Behavioral Center. My breath catches. After weeks of careful planning, the synchronized release of evidence packages to 7 different media outlets has worked exactly as intended. The Washington Times has the financial records. Tessa continues, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Channel 9 is running the video footage from Stonemaier. NPR has 3 former employees on record. I watch as the camera cuts to the steps of the Hale Foundation headquarters. Dr. Martin Hale stands behind a podium, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the morning chill. These allegations are completely unfounded, he stammers, adjusting his tie. The Hale Foundation has a 50-year history of compassionate care. The reporter interrupts. Dr. Hale, can you explain these internal memos authorizing the commitment of Dr. Camille Mercer after she reported experimental protocols at Stonemeyer Institute? The camera zooms in on documents held up for viewers to see. My foster father's signature is clearly visible at the bottom. Gregory Collins, Chief Financial Officer, Hale Foundation. I turn up the volume as the anchor reports. Social media has erupted with the hashtag #RockHollowTruth as former patients begin sharing their experiences. My phone buzzes with an incoming text from an unknown number. State Medical Board just called emergency session for 9 a.m. It's working. Outside, the sky begins to lighten with the first pale hints of dawn. I pull up another news site on my laptop. Rock Hollow administrators have been placed on administrative leave. A congressman from the Oversight Committee is calling for a federal investigation. The system is beginning to crack. I call Margot at exactly 7:05 a.m., following our predetermined schedule. The night staff is in chaos, she reports in a hushed voice. Administration ordered all patient files secured, but security is stretched thin, covering the entrance where reporters are gathering. Tonight, I tell her. We move tonight. 16 hours later, I park 2 blocks from Rock Hollow's service entrance. The evening news reported Gregory Collins' home being searched by police, and Dr. Hale taken in for questioning. The momentum has built faster than we anticipated. Margot meets me at the employee gate, her face taut with nervous energy. She slips me a staff ID badge. I've already processed the discharge papers, she whispers as we walk briskly through service corridors. Filed them yesterday before anyone was watching for unusual activity. The hallways are eerily quiet. Most staff have been pulled to manage the media crisis or deal with the influx of concerned family members calling about patients. Third floor has minimal supervision tonight, Margot explains, swiping her keycard at the elevator. Everybody's either hiding or destroying evidence. The elevator doors slide open on the 3rd floor. My heart pounds against my ribs as we move down the corridor, our footsteps muffled by industrial carpeting. Margot pauses outside room 317, glancing both ways before unlocking the door. Camille sits on the edge of her bed, a small canvas bag packed beside her. Her gray-streaked hair has been neatly combed, and she wears a cardigan I've never seen before over her standard-issue hospital clothes. I knew you'd come today, she says simply. Her eyes so much like my own are clear and focused. The medication schedule changed. They're distracted. I cross the room in 3 steps and take her hands. They're cold but steady. No matter what they did, I tell her, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice, I was always coming back for you. Margot stands watch at the door. 5 minutes till shift change. We need to move. We exit through the same service entrance, Camille walking between us. No alarm sound, no security guards call out. Just the heavy metal door closing behind us with a muted click that sounds remarkably like freedom. The night air wraps around us, crisp and sweet compared to the antiseptic staleness of Rock Hollow. Camille pauses for a moment, tilting her face toward the stars. The Big Dipper, she murmurs. I could only see 1 star from my window, never the whole constellation. In the car, she recites details about my life that she somehow managed to collect and memorize despite years of chemical restraint. You won the 5th grade spelling championship with the word quintessential, she says as we drive away from Rock Hollow. You broke your arm at 12 climbing the maple tree in the backyard. You're allergic to strawberries. Her hand finds mine on the console between us, and I realize she's been collecting these fragments of my life the way prisoners notch marks on walls counting days, preserving sanity. The late-night news plays on the radio. Gregory Collins' reputation is unraveling in real time as reporters uncover his role in multiple improper commitments. Dr. Hale's legal team has issued a statement distancing him from operational decisions. 3 more Rock Hollow administrators have been suspended. The state attorney general's office announced tonight that a comprehensive investigation into allegations of systematic patient abuse will begin immediately, the announcer states. Meanwhile, attorneys have filed the first class action lawsuit on behalf of former patients. I switch off the radio. There will be time for justice tomorrow. Tonight is about something else entirely. Camille squeezes my hand. They thought burying the truth would make it disappear, she says softly. They forgot that buried things can grow. The headlights cut through darkness as we drive toward the state line, leaving Rock Hollow behind without a backward glance. Toward a new beginning neither of us dared imagine just weeks ago. Some endings are really just the truth, finally set free. The morning sun spills across our kitchen table, lighting up the crossword puzzle Camille works with steady concentration. A cup of tea cools at her elbow, the steam curling up toward ceiling beams weathered by decades of salt air. After 6 months in this coastal village, our cottage walls have begun to feel less borrowed. 23 across, Camille says, tapping her pencil against the newspaper. 6 letters, what was once lost? Found. I answer without looking up from the toast I'm buttering. Her laugh comes easy now. Nothing like those first weeks after Rock Hollow when laughter emerged rusty and uncertain. You didn't even need the clue. I place her plate beside the crossword. Some answers I just know. Our cottage sits on the edge of town where paved roads surrender to gravel. Windows face east because Camille insisted said she'd spent 16 years unable to track time through natural light. Now she wakes with the sunrise, often before my alarm. Some mornings I find her simply standing by the window, palms pressed against glass, still cool from night air. We use different names now. Not elaborate disguises, just subtle shifts, Catherine for Camille, Marie for Maya. Small deflections while investigations continue without us. The neighbors know us as the quiet mother and daughter who moved in last winter. The aunt at the bakery saves day-old bread for us. The librarian recommends novels with happy endings. The medication withdrawal was hardest. 3 months of tremors and memory gaps, nights when Camille would wake screaming from nightmares she couldn't articulate. I kept careful notes in our shared journal, good days in blue ink, difficult ones in black. The entries grow steadily bluer. Tell me again about my 3rd birthday, I say, watching her hands steady as she writes in 7 across. Camille sets down her pencil. You wore yellow overalls. Insisted on them even though it was November. Her eyes focus on something beyond our kitchen walls. You carried that stuffed rabbit everywhere, Hoppy. Head shoot off one ear. I baked chocolate cupcakes with strawberry frosting because you couldn't decide between the two. You ate the frosting first, then the cake, methodical even then. Each recovered memory feels like restitution. We're building a bridge across 16 years of stolen time, plank by plank. The television murmurs in the corner, volume low. Camille still flinches at sudden noises. The morning news shows Dr. Hale being escorted from his foundation offices, his face shielded by an upraised hand. The headline crawls across the bottom. Investigation expands to 3 states. They found the records in Connecticut, Camille says quietly. I don't ask how she knows. Tessa keeps us informed through secure channels, though we've never told her our location. Her exposé just won a national award. Gregory Collins faces 13 criminal charges. The state medical board has suspended 6 psychiatrist licenses. A congressional hearing on institutional psychiatric abuse begins next month. The notification chime on my laptop sounds from the other room. Camille raises an eyebrow. Another survivor, I explain, retrieving the computer. Kerr. She's been sending encrypted messages for weeks. Claire Rothman, Camille whispers, eyes widening. She was at Stonemeyer before me. They said she killed herself. Very much alive, I say, turning the screen so she can see the message. You did what I couldn't. We're organizing testimony for the hearings. No pressure to join, but your statement would matter. CR. 53 former patients have connected through our secure channel. Each story echoes parts of Camille's brilliant women who questioned powerful men, then vanished behind diagnoses manufactured to silence them. Later, we walk the shoreline as evening paints everything gold. Camille's steps are stronger now, her frame less fragile. She pulls a photograph from her pocket, the one she kept hidden inside Rock Hollow's library copy of Jane Eyre for 16 years. In it, I sit on her lap, no more than two, both of us laughing at something beyond the camera. I always felt something was missing, I admit, watching waves erase our footprints, even before I found the documents. Camille slips her hand into mine. They could take everything else, but they couldn't erase that.